Happy Saturday, folks. The real Captain Kirk here. We're live from One Bethlehem Plaza here in downtown Bethlehem here on the 23rd of August. It was a beautiful day here. Fall-like almost, 54 this morning, and got up to about 79 here this afternoon. So, again, in fact, fall is something we're going to be talking about here because it is going to get pretty chilly here across, in fact, most of the country here. We thought we'd do a summer summary to date here. This is 1 June through 31 August. So, again, about a week left of forecast into this mix. So, again, the big cool down here at the end of August is definitely going to change the numbers a bit, but overall, while it's had its hot moments for sure, 1.2 cooler nationally than last year, coolest in 6 years for the summer overall, still 15th warmest in 40 years, so again about 0.4 above average on a national scale. So big map here is the trends versus average, so certainly hot there in the Great Lakes, Ohio Valley, western New England, and then throughout the Rockies into the Pacific Northwest. Map inset left there is the trends versus last year, so the couple areas that have been hotter than average and hotter than last year would be the Pacific Northwest, probably there in Michigan and extreme western New York, New England. So again, a lot of areas actually cooler than last year. Again, a lot of that will be here with this big cool down here for the latter couple weeks of August. Hot 90-degree days were down about 9% versus last year, still 8th most in 40 years, so above average, and precip actually about 3% drier than a year ago on a national scale. Driest in 3 years, 17th driest, a little bit below average. Big map here with the rainfall is on a bigger scale of 2 to 30 inches. So those much above average rainfalls would be there in Nebraska, Corn Belt, Iowa, southern Wisconsin. Again, so some of those areas, 16, 18, 20 plus inches, real heavy rainfall. You can see a couple of them actually down there in Kansas where there's almost 25 inches, and then Southwest Florida, again, 25, 30 inches, which is not terribly uncommon for them. That's, pretty much near average. So again, it's had its moments for heat waves, but it's also had its moments for some of these bigger cool downs. Looking at our 2025 year to date now, this is tropical cyclone tracks across the world here. Through today, we obviously added Erin here this past week, Cat 5. It was the second Cat 5 across the world here. The first one was Errol back in 16 April that went kind of more toward northwest Australia. So Erin fortunately made a U-turn between the Bermuda and the East Coast, and the big waves were the biggest impact for the East Coast. But all the metrics now, named storms, storm days, hurricanes, pretty much near average to above average here again for these metrics. In fact, we're just now adding Fernand. It'll be a fish storm, meaning it's not going to probably impact land. Again, it's tracking to the southeast of Bermuda. So again, Bermuda's dodging bullets here. Good news. Again, Erin off to the west, and now this one off to the southeast. This is probably going to remain a tropical storm. Again, then there's another slight chance of something developing through the Windward Islands and going into the Caribbean. So 'tis the season. Again, we're getting to the peak season here, so we've got a long way to go here. It's day 83, so you can see we're nowhere near the peak just yet. We've got 99 days to go, and so again, a lot of the season here ahead of us here. So again, can't get lulled to sleep here. Looking at severe weather, again, a little bit of a lull here this past week. So tornadoes now down 9% versus last year. Hail down 2% versus a year ago, and wind cases still up. In fact, now up the most in 14 years for wind cases. Again, meaning non-tornadic, just straight line type winds. A little bit of a lull here, not a lot of activity, just your general garden variety thunderstorms. Maybe a slightly elevated risk there in Colorado, Kansas here this weekend, but then not much to say the least. Looking at year-to-date, hot 90-degree days, again, picked up some steam here. U.S. is now trending down 3% versus last year. Northeast is trending down 7% versus last year. Still 5th most in 40 years for the season to date. But look at this plunge here. This is the next 2 weeks. Again, just crazy cold. So this last year was obviously very, very hot, a lot of hot 90-degree days. This year, U.S. down 57% for the next 2 weeks, and least in 29 years. Northeast, non-existent. We're not predicting one 90-degree day for the northeast cities, which would be from Virginia to Michigan and points north and east. Again, so not expecting any cities to actually hit 90 here over the next 2 weeks. So again, a little unusual here, to say the least. Look at last week, world summer here, a week ending 23 August here in the U.S., 1.3 warmer than last year, 9th warmest in 40 years, so above average on that front. Hot 90-degree days were up 18%, 6th most in 40 years, and it was, while it's wetter, 31% wetter, wettest in 3, still below average rainfall. Pretty cool there in Europe, coolest in 10 years, very hot in China, number 1 hottest. Cool down under in Australia for their winter. Again, big map here is the trends versus last year, how our clients would look at the weather, and maps inset left are the trends versus average. If we look at this week here, again, a week before Labor Day, so it's a critical week here for the big retailers and suppliers of seasonal goods here. So a wholesale change. I mean, just epic change here again. U.S. 7.5 colder than last year, coldest in 38 years, third coldest in 40 years. So this is crazy cold for late August, September. Still summer, but again, crazy cold when you're talking the coldest in 38 years. Hot 90-degree day downs, plunging, least in 29 years, and rainfall down about 22%, driest in 10 years, so fourth driest in 40 years. Very heavy rain there. We'll see if that materializes there in Oklahoma, Arkansas, where there's 5+ inches of rain along a stalled, where the cold front's pretty much going to stall. So we'll see. That's a pretty heavy flooding potential rain there in the heartland, central U.S. Look at next week here, the week of Labor Day. So this is the first week of September. In fact, the meteorologists say that 1 September is the start of fall. So that's just 8 days away, and you gotta wait till the sun says 22nd of September is fall. But again, meteorologists say this is the first day of fall, and it's going to pretty much trend that way. 2.4 cooler than last year, coolest in 8 years, 11th coolest in 40 years. So again, below average national temperatures. But notice the really cold weather there in the central U.S. is warmed up, and big cool down for the west. That'll be a huge change going from hot to cold. You'll definitely notice that in the western half of the country, into the Rockies. East Coast still cool. Hot 90-degree days, again, down 46% versus a year ago, least in 16 years now, 8th least in 40 years, so way below average. And precip up a bit, 5%, wettest in 3 years, wettest in 4 years, actually, 20th wettest, so a little bit above average here. And some of that heavy rain in the heartland shifts a little more into the part of the central Corn Belt, into the Tennessee, Kentucky Valley areas. And if we aggregate these just world 2-week trends here through the 6th of September. So the theme is, look at that cold. You're taking really cold first week in the central U.S. and the eastern U.S., and then it gets cooled off for the western U.S. So pretty much almost wall-to-wall cool conditions across the U.S. other than maybe the extreme northern tier. And warming trend there in Canada, for western northern Canada. Central Europe still pretty cool, and still cool down under for the last week or so here of winter down under in Australia. Look at rainfall trends here again. So above average in the west, again, is not a lot this time of year, so above average still means next to nothing in the Rockies in the west. But again, some upward trends here with that cooler weather moving in, and generally a dry theme for Great Lakes, East Coast, Deep South. We'll see. Again, we've got to watch that tropical system here, so it's that can certainly change the picture here. So with that, folks, we hope you have a great week ahead. Have a great Labor Day weekend, and we'll talk to you here in a week or two. Have a great week.